Hey guys, Bubba here with the Bubba News. All in one word, all in one news. But guys, tonight I'm going to be sounding the alarm louder than ever before. Just days ago, from December 6th through the 8th, the headlines on my Telegram channel were on fire. The IDF chief, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, he declared Gaza's yellow line as Israel's permanent new border. With Hamas reeling and rockets failing, Philistia's ancient strongholds marked for divine judgment, exactly as Amos, Zephaniah, and Zechariah foretold. But guys, as I'm recording this on December 9th, 2025, the Holy Spirit won't let me stop there. Overnight, Syria erupted on the one-year anniversary of Bashar al-Assad's fall. Military parades in Damascus and across the country turned soldiers and crowds chanting hostile slogans against Israel, calling Israel the enemy, and vowing liberation from the river to the sea. And videos circulating show the same ancient spirit rising. The Psalm 83 confederacy is assembling right before our eyes. And this isn't coincidence. The yellow line in the south is God basically drawing the boundary of judgment on Philistia, on Hamas. And now the north awakens with the same rage? Well, Gaza first, then the surrounding nations. We're watching the fire spread exactly as the prophet said. In this urgent 30-minute breakdown, we'll start with the yellow line post that started it all, December 6th through the 8th. And we're going to walk through Hamas's collapse and Hezbollah's threats. And we're going to end today's show with the Syria bombshell, and proving that the Word of God is unfolding in real time. But if this quickens your spirit, hit that like button now, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment Psalm 83 if you see the confederacy forming. The hour is late, the king is moving. Let's dive in. Oh, guys, see what I'm doing? I'm trying to do this different tonight. I thought I'd have some fun, but yeah, let's keep going. Yeah, that was a new little dealio I wanted to get going. But yeah, this is all Nutty Professor because this is wild. Israel has officially, or basically unofficially extended its borders into Gaza. Their lieutenant chief, their IDF chief there, he defined Gaza's yellow line as Israel's new border line in the army's forward defensive posture. He said, "We will not allow Hamas to reestablish itself. We have operational control over extensive parts of the Gaza Strip, and we will remain on those defense lines." He said the yellow line is the new border line, serving as a forward defensive line for our communities and a line of operational activity. And this is exactly what this whole show is going to be about today, because everything is coming together. Everything is coming together for Psalm 83 with everything. And Julani, we've got Hezbollah we're going to talk about. This is nuts. But yeah, over the weekend on Saturday, even Julani, he said that because Israel's effort is to establish a demilitarized buffer zone in southern Syria is risking pushing the country into a dangerous place. So Israel has carried out hundreds of airstrikes on Syrian positions, military positions. But the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad fell to this guy, Jolani al-Shura, there 1 year ago on December 8th, 2024. So over the past year, Israel's repeatedly performed ground operations inside southern Syria and has arrested individuals it accuses of terrorist activity. But this is what they said. Tampering with this agreement while proposing alternatives, such as a new buffer zone, could drive us into dangerous territory against Israel. They keep saying that Israel continues to violate their airspace and territory. It's just a matter of time. But speaking of a matter of time, we're going to talk about Taiwan because that's building up as well. And we've got Pete Hegseth here talking about China's hypersonic missiles could destroy all U.S. aircraft carriers in just 20 minutes.
All of its war games against China, we lose every time inside the Pentagon war games. We know what our real capability. You see, we didn't even get to this part of the war on warriors. I mean, the military-industrial complex, the way we procure weapon systems. We're always the way our system works, the way our bureaucratic system works, where the speed of weapons procurement works. We're always a decade behind in fighting the last war, whereas China, we have, what did Rumsfeld say? You go to the war, the army you have. We have the army. China's building an army specifically dedicated to defeating the United States of America. That is their strategic outset. Take hypersonic missiles. So if our whole power projection platform is aircraft carriers and the ability to project power that way strategically around the globe, and yeah, we have a nuclear triad and all of that, but a big part of it. And if 15 hypersonic missiles can take out our 10 aircraft carriers in the first 20 minutes of a conflict.
The USA knows this is true. China knows this is true. The world is on borrowed time, no doubt. China's hypersonic missiles could destroy all U.S. aircraft carriers in just 20 minutes. Unbelievable. But let's get back to the Middle East, because the chief of staff there, Zamir, he said the IDF is preparing for the possibility of a surprise war. And this is one of the central pillars of its upcoming multi-year plan. So Zamir has stressed shifting from reactive containment to offensive initiative across borders. And the planning comes against some heightened alerts there with the Northern Front. Escalating exchanges with Hezbollah, with IDF strikes in Lebanon. Gaza and the West Bank, ongoing operations against Hamas, and rising Palestinian militant activity in the West Bank. The entire Iranian axis, fears of coordinated attacks, including via proxies from Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. But everything is still going towards this phase two. I don't get it, because Netanyahu says he'll give the international security force, that ISF, a chance in Gaza, but that in the end, disarming Hamas will be done, hinting that Israel will end up disarming Hamas by force. So these remarks came Sunday at a meeting of Israel's ambassadors there in Jerusalem. Netanyahu suggested that the International Stabilization Force might not be able to force Hamas to lay down its weapons. He said, in the second phase, we are moving to disarmament and demilitarization. We know that there are certain missions that this force could do, but there are certain things that they can't do. Maybe even the main task they can't do. We will see. But Netanyahu vowed that Hamas would be disarmed, repeating a phrase he's used multiple times when discussing disarmament. We can do it the easy way or the hard way, but in the end, it will be done. But Hamas keeps saying that they're not going to lay down their weapons, even on Sunday. One of its senior officials said that Hamas was ready to discuss freezing or storing its weapons for a period of 5 to 10 years as part of a peaceful process aimed towards establishing a Palestinian state. This guy, Bassem Naim, he said the multinational force could not be tasked with disarming Hamas. But he wants to freeze or store their weapons so that once the state of Palestine gets established, they will then have a military force with their rockets. But they don't accept the ISF, these international security forces, to come in. He said they're welcome to hang out on the borders, the Yellow Line border, but not to come into Gaza. So Israel can't even get on to phase 2 because phase 1 is not completed yet. The ceasefire stipulated that Hamas release all hostages, living and deceased, and the remains of the once slain Israeli hostage, Ron Gavili. He's still being held in Gaza. But check this out. Speaking of everything coming to a head with this, Netanyahu said he would discuss phase 2 of the plan with Trump during Netanyahu's 5th White House visit this year alone, later this month in December, on December 29th. But he meets with Trump after this. The official Board of Peace leaders get announced on December 15th, next Monday. So the Board of Peace is that international transitional body chaired by Trump. And it's mandated by UN Security Council Resolution 2803, adopted November 17th, 2025, to oversee Gaza's administration, reconstruction, and recovery. It is expected to consist of approximately 10 leaders from Arab, Western, and other Muslim countries. So the announcement of these full 10 leaders is scheduled for December 15th. So this aligns with the U.S. push to transition to phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan before the end of the year, with the ceasefire continuing there that became effective October 10th. So I'll have to keep an eye on that. But you know what? Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, because his love does endure forever and ever and ever. Oh, man, we're going to talk about some more Bible verses at the end, but we're going to go to yesterday's news. Tony Blair was dropped from Donald Trump's Gaza board there. He's been dropped like a hot potato due to objections from several Arab and Muslim states over his role supposedly in the 2003 Iraq War operation, when the United States went in after 9/11. But Blair's going to serve on a newly created executive committee within the same framework, coordinating between the Board of Peace and the Palestinian Technocratic Committee for day-to-day operations. So this is scheduled to be announced on December 15th, and then they can transition to phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan. But this announcement hinges on the final vetting of the boards. There's going to it's between 10 and 15 members. So they're hoping to have this and the deployment of the International Stabilization Force in Gaza by Christmas if all milestones are met. But Hamas will not disarm. I mean, yesterday even members of the Hamas political bureau, Tahir al-Nunu, he said, talking about we demand that the mediators remove Blair. He said that we are prepared for a long-term hudna, which is truce, on the condition that Israel is obligated to the ceasefire, but he says the weapons of the Hamas resistance will be part of the weapons of the Palestinian state after it is established. So now they state that their weapons will be part of the new security for the state of Palestine. He said we categorically reject the issue of disarming Gaza by an international force. We will not discuss this under any circumstances. And he says we do not believe that there's any country that would agree to take part in an international force whose mission would be to disarm Hamas. And in any case, we do not agree to this. Hamas is not going to disarm. So let's do an analysis. On Sunday, Hamas Khalid Mashal and yesterday the Hamas member al-Nuno both stated very clearly that Hamas will never disarm or leave Gaza. So this is important that the Trump administration understand the role of arms in Arab culture because they symbolize power and respect. I mean, Hamas never intended to disarm. Their primary goal is to buy time so that they can regroup and seize power again. If Hamas gives up their arms, they will be finished as a movement. And they will be remembered as the group that brought disaster to Gaza and lost Arab land. So Hamas cannot accept this outcome. So they're desperately clinging to power in the hope of survival. But one thing is certain, Hamas will not survive if they disarm. And no country is going to join this Gaza stabilization force to disarm Gaza while Hamas remains armed. So the International Stabilization Force isn't going to disarm them because they're armed. Hamas says, well, we're not going to disarm and we don't want you here. So this feels like a merry-go-round that won't end. And even Qatar, they're a major supporter of Hamas. They're attempting to help the group achieve its goal. And recent remarks from Qatari officials leave no doubt that Qatar wants the agreement changed in favor of Hamas so that it can survive. But if you listen to the rhetoric from Israel in the past few days, from the Prime Minister and the IDF Chief of Staff, they've emphasized two things. One, the yellow line will be the new border of Gaza, meaning that the IDF will not withdraw from this new border line. They're basically taking this as Israel, that whole green section. We're going to show it here in a second. Number two, Hamas will disarm, either the easy way by themselves or the hard way by Israel. Everyone in Israel is prepared to return to fighting Hamas in Gaza. I mean, the Israelis know that Hamas will not disarm voluntarily, and that disarming them will have to be done by force. The main issue is whether Trump will back Israel. Either way, Israel will move to eliminate Hamas, with or without the U.S. support. By force, no doubt. And I threw up these verses on Telegram. Ezekiel 25, 15 to 17. Amos 1, 6 through 8. Obadiah 1, 15 to 21. Jeremiah 47, 4 to 7. And Zephaniah 2, 4 to 7. And even last night, talking about, Hezbollah, they're still there. Because Israeli media did some Israeli airstrikes in southern Lebanon last night. They confirmed conducting the airstrikes and hit Hezbollah sites, including a training and qualification compound used by the group's elite Radwan force. They're like special forces that are planning to attack Israel by ground. They plan on making the October 7th ground incursion look like kids play. They want to do it all the way across the border of northern Israel, Lebanon. And the Bible tells us that Israel's going to get hit hard in Isaiah 17:4-6. But the IDF did hit some buildings used by Hezbollah on a rocket launching site in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah is silent about the Israeli airstrikes lately because it's preparing for a strong blow to Israel. This will change the rules of engagement. One day of fighting against Hezbollah will equal a full round of fighting against Gaza. Hezbollah's tactics are different. And this guy, Hamas declared it will not comply with the peace agreement, rejects all conditions, and vows to destroy Israel. This is what he said in the conference in Istanbul, Turkey over the weekend. Khalid Mashal rejected all United States and UN resolution demands. We just read about the UN resolution 2803 that's permanent. And he called for the vowing to keep their weapons. And he called for the liberation of Israel, in other words, takeover of Jerusalem. He talks about Al-Aqsa, the Temple Mount, and all Israeli holy sites. He outlined post-war priorities that include opposing Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria, freeing all imprisoned terrorists in Israeli jails, pursuing Israeli leaders abroad, and expanding global anti-Israel activism. You know, at this point, Israel should have every right to finish this war. Israel's tried over and over to give Hamas a chance to choose peace, but they always answer with clear rejection. Nothing good will come from these terrorists anytime soon. Israel will be fulfilling Bible prophecy soon and taking care of the Philistines. So the IDF is preparing for phase 2, which to them means physically removing Hamas from its weapons. Not removing the weapons from Hamas, but removing Hamas from its weapons. There's some big planning taking place. Physically removing Hamas from its weapons is a very nice way for the IDF to say obliterating every single Hamas terrorist. But check this out. I'm going to segue real quick for a Gog-Magog scenario, Ezekiel 38. But Turkey, once again, they're talking about reinstating the Ottoman Empire. Erdogan is carrying out the first stepping stone towards a future Ottoman Empire. He is becoming the next Iran. The West needs to wake up.
Issue that I'd like to comment on. I completely respect and agree with every word you said, but I would even go further and say that it's not that Israel is afraid that Turkey will take over or use Syria as a stepping stone towards Israel. I think that there is no longer a Syria. I think that it's a facade. I think that it's Turkey that we are facing. It's interesting that Asharia keeps saying that Israel is, in fact, in the southern part of Syrian soil, but it says no word about Turkey being in the northern part of Syrian soil, and not for a short while, but rather for a very long while. And this is something that is a huge issue. One, Turkey is a huge country, very geostrategically placed in terms of its geographic placing. Secondly, it's a NATO member. In terms of military might, it's very capable. And obviously supporting the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, having grown up on the, let's say, ideology of the founders of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, Erdogan is carrying out the absolute first stepping stones and the foundation of a future Ottoman Empire. He says it in his speeches, he speaks it in his actions. He is placing himself in Libya, in Sudan, in many places in Africa. He is the next Iran. And when Iran and the Shiite axis lowers or weakens, always the Sunni axis strengthens, and vice versa. And this is something that it will eat from within the West if it doesn't wake up soon enough.
Thank you.
Isn't that nuts? But look who Erdogan is hanging with, Jolani. They're all buddy-buddy. They're all buddy-buddy. So we know that the Syrian from the north comes down. And we know that there's some attacks from the north coming up too. Speaking of the north, Israel described the Lebanon force as very weak. Check this out. Oh, before we get there, John 8:32, the truth shall set you free, and you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. I love that. John 8:32. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Israel, they're talking about Lebanon because they're expecting the Lebanese armed forces to remove and disarm the Hezbollah rockets. But they're very weak and they're unable to fully execute the disarming task of Hezbollah because it avoids entering the private homes of the civilians that is being used by Hezbollah for military purposes. So Israel's military has expressed serious doubts that the Lebanese armed forces will not meet the end of the this year, December 31st deadline for the first phase of disarming Hezbollah in southern Lebanon south of the Litani River. The original timeline was announced earlier this year by the Lebanese government and the United States. They've had almost 1 year to do this. The Lebanese army avoids entering private homes and properties used by Hezbollah, limiting the effectiveness of their campaign. But you know what? There's also major concerns about the ongoing coordination between some of the Shiite officers in the Lebanese army and Hezbollah. So they're working hand in hand. So this is a situation that Israel's monitoring closely. And the official told I-24 News that if the Lebanese armed forces progress is too slow, well, the IDF will change the manner in which it strikes Hezbollah. And of course, Hamas officials say that the Gaza troops can't move to phase 2 due to Israel's violations. But this was the political bureau there of Hamas, Hussam Badran. He called on Egypt, Qatar, and the United States to pressure Israel to complete the implementation of the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. And under the terms, they were supposed to commit to releasing the remaining 48 living and dead captives being held in Gaza. And 47 out of those 48 have been returned. But the remains of one, the seized hostage, Police Master Sergeant Ron Gavili, are still being held on the Strip as efforts to find his body have come up short. They think they know where he is, but with this huge rainstorm they're getting, they've called off search operations going forward for tomorrow. And Netanyahu and Trump both suggested that the ceasefire would soon progress to phase 2. But this is Hamas disarming. Hamas refuses calls to disarm. Netanyahu vowed that Hamas will be disarmed. But in the end, it will be done, he says. So now we're going to switch to today's big news. The Syrian army soldiers, they recorded chanting phrase referencing a historical massacre of Jews. This is not resistance. This is genocidal hate dressed up as politics. This is just the beginning. Wait till the next video. Senior Israeli officials are holding intensive consultations to assess the implications of Jolani's troops chanting against Israel and the Jews. Israel is preparing concrete steps and will deliver a powerful, forceful message to the Syrian regime, demanding an immediate condemnation of its soldiers' conducts. And Israeli security officials said that we treat the Syrian regime with total suspicion. This Israeli government has we know all about them because they know that they are a deeply extremist jihadist character, that government. And we, the Israelis, have no illusions about who they really are. Talking about Jolani's guys. Footage shows Syrian army under Jolani's command, shouting, Khaybar, Khaybar. Ya Yehud, O Jews, the army of Muhammad will return. The new Syrian army is essentially Al-Qaeda fighters rebranded. Israel will eventually have to deal with this threat. And when that happens, the West will accuse Israel of destabilizing another poor, quote-unquote, innocent country. These videos are purposely being released by the General Security Forces of Syria's jihadist regime. And they're showing their soldiers marching in Damascus and calling for an invasion of Israel. Gaza, Gaza, our rallying cry, victory and steadfastness night and day. We rise against you, enemy Israel, we rise. From mountains of fire, we make our way. From my blood, I forge my ammunition. From your blood, Jewish blood, rivers will flow. I'm going to show you another one. This is absolutely nuts. Israel's going to have to deal with this. But, you know, these videos are purposely being released. I mean, is it just me or people groupings getting into place for Psalm 83:8? Assyria also has joined with them. In Isaiah 17:1-14, the Damascus War. Jeremiah 49:23-27 also discusses what happens to Syria by Israel.
غزة 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 شعار غزة شعار قصف دمار قصف دمار يلو النهار يلو النهار طالع لك يا عدوي طالع طالع لك يا عدوي طالع غزة 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 شعار قصف دمار يلو النهار
I tell you what, this is crazy town. Syria's new ruler, Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, continues to speak about uniting the country while he's asserting full command of the Syrian military. So if this is the true version for Syria's future by Jolani, what and who is the Syrian army uniting around? The what is Israel. The who are the Jews. Jolani is beginning to show his true colors. He's suddenly changed. I mean, do we trust Jolani not to eventually turn his weapons on Israel? All of this weaponry I'm getting ready to show you from their 1-year celebration, is suddenly be displayed. And it's clearly to be used against 3 fronts. The Kurds in the northeast, the Druze people there in Sueda, and Israel. After Arafat, Israel understands the timeless truth. You can shave the beard and wear an Armani suit like Jolani does, but once a jihadi, always a jihadi. When someone tells you who you are, you believe them. We really don't trust Jolani. He will turn his weapons on Israel. Can a leopard change its spots? That's Jeremiah 13:23. This suddenly feels like watching an Iranian or Yemen or Houthis parade. My goodness gracious. And even following these anti-Israel chants in the military parade in Damascus, a Syrian source close to the Jolani regime warned, Israel is creating a new enemy here. Even Israel's minister of the diaspora in combating anti-Semitism stated war is inevitable with Syria. Israel has a new front coming, Assyria. Now, this next one, you won't see this on CNN, but you know who is seeing this? Israel. Khaybar. You're going to hear about Khaybar. This was the 7th century massacre of Jews. Qadisiyah. That's the Islamic conquest. These are chants of the forces that the West has spent the last year marketing as moderate. Jolani has visited the White House. Everybody from Trump to the Europeans have welcomed him into their club as if he's the cool new kid on the block. But something's changed with Jolani, at least publicly, because the 1-year anniversary of his conquest of President Bashar al-Assad seemed to have lit a fuse. Something much bigger is coming soon, and I'm watching for a flare-up against the Druze with Israel having to step in and move into Syria, and that won't make Jolani happy. Check this out.
جيش محمد سوف يعود جيش محمد سوف يعود جيش محمد سوف يعود الله أكبر الله أكبر نحن جند القادسية نحن جند القادسية نحن جند الوطن نحن لا نخشى المنية. نحن لا نخشى المنية. نار جنة الاتباع. نار جنة الاتباع. الله أكبر. يا شباب
We're not afraid of death. Unbelievable. You know, as of this very day, December 9th, 2025, the enemy in the north can't stay silent. Oh man, this is crazy. My feed has been blowing up with footage from Syria's Liberation Day parades. Syrian army units marching, crowds cheering, but listen close to the chants. Hostile slogans against Israel. Reference to the enemy in Jerusalem. Calls echoing the same Hamas rhetoric. Sweeping Israel away. Liberating Palestine from the river to the sea. I mean, a force on behalf of the Syrian regime right here. You see them flying their HTS flags. Those white flags, a Hayat al-Sham. But they crossed today in an unusual manner at an IDF checkpoint in the Golan Heights in the Quneitra area. And the Syrian armed men documented themselves as they crossed the Zionist enemy checkpoint. They go through the checkpoint up here where you've got IDF crew on both sides of the road. See it right there on the left and right there? Yeah, they went right through there. As they crossed the enemy checkpoint, Zionist enemy, Israel's checkpoint, in their words, with Israel's approval, they shouted, Allahu Akbar, and our leaders forever is our master Muhammad. This is the spirit of Assyria joining the confederacy. I mean, Psalm 83, 6 through 8 is alive today. Even talking about Assyria is joined with them. The new regime may talk moderation, but the streets and soldiers are revealing the heart. And you know what? All of these things are coming to pass. I mean, look, this is from Bill Solace, but these are a lot of the wars that are going to take place and that are underway now. Or at least they've begun, or the flame is there and the fuse is lit. Man, take a screenshot if you need to, but these are great. A study right there with the Palestinians, number 4 with Obadiah 1, 18, Ezekiel 25, 14 and 15. All this stuff is coming up, but you know what? The streets of the soldiers are revealing the heart. And the yellow line, we're going to read about the Shephelah here, right outside of Philistia. And that's the area between Bethlehem there on the right-hand side and Philistia, where Gaza is. And the yellow line quarantines and judges the Philistia in the south. Gaza and Hamas is crumbling. Meanwhile, Hezbollah masses rockets. Iranian stirs its proxies, and now Syria openly revives the open hatred. It's the multi-front setup for God's intervention. Zechariah 12, where it says, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling. All that burn themselves with it shall be cut to pieces. But here's what I'm talking about. The Shephelah, Obadiah 1:19. And then those of the Negev will possess the mountain of Esau. And those of the Shephelah, the Philistine plain. Israel controls the Shephelah. This is the valley there from the high mountains to the coastland where Gaza is. It's all coming together. But the thing that blows my mind is that yellow line. Check that out. That yellow line, that's going to be the new permanent line, basically, of Israel. The green zone, and that's the yellow line. Rafah down there on the left-hand side in the green is where all the terrorists are still in the tunnels, and they pop them up, and that's when the IDF gets them or arrests them. And there's still a bunch of guys down there. The past 4 days on the Bubba News, Telegram thing, they're not random headlines. They're trumpet blasts. Philistia's doom is sealed. The north is raging. Israel is standing as the apple of God's eye. But, in my dream, I had a dream the other night, just like the other picture, where Philistia is cut like a surgeon's knife. And it was all that yellow line there, and this is like an old map, but you know what I mean? The yellow line, it was on fire. And it was burning inward on that red area, consuming it. Oh, man. But it's almost like that fire is going to spread north, with Hezbollah and Syria. But yeah, I mean, here's another one. Zephaniah 2:5. Woe to the inhabitants of the seacoast, the nation of the Cherethites. The word of the Lord is against you, O Canaan, land of the Philistines. So I will destroy you so that there will be no inhabitant. Israel's going to put some force on Gaza and Hamas in the coming days. And it's going to get nutty, Professor. And here's an old Chuck Missler screenshot. The Cherethites. They're migrants at the bottom who came to be known as Philistines. Right there on the Mediterranean. Woe to the inhabitants of the Mediterranean seacoast, the nation of the Cherethites. I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant. I mean, here's another one. Ezekiel 25:15. Thus says the Lord God, because the Philistines dealt vengefully and took vengeance with a spiteful heart, to destroy because of the Olam, Ibah, the old hatred, the eternal hatred. Therefore, thus says the Lord God, I will stretch out my hand against the Philistines. I will cut off the Cherethites, the Gazan people, the Hamas, and destroy the remnant of the Mediterranean seacoast, and I will execute great vengeance on them with furious rebukes, and they shall know that I am the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon them. Whoa, let's get back over here. But you know what? I keep thinking about that because in my dream, how that line was like burning on that Gaza yellow line, and as it was burning the red zone inward, it was like that would become like fertilizer to Israel. And this verse came to mind, Zephaniah 2:6 and 7 there, of the Zephaniah 2:4-7, talking about Gaza and what's coming. So the seacoast will be for pastures, with caves for shepherds and folds for flocks. But the coast will be for the remnant of the house of Judah, the Mediterranean coast, the sea coast, where the Cherethites are, where Gaza is. They will pasture on it in the house of Eshkelon. They will lie down at evening, for the Lord their God will care for them and restore their future, their fortune. So it's coming back to Israel. But it's your call, guys. You know, we need to pray the Psalm 83 prayers against the confederacy. It's getting ready to form, but, you know, we need to stand with Jerusalem and share this video with others, because so many people need to wake up, because we are in the end times right now. And we know that Jesus Christ is coming so very soon. And, man, something's getting ready to pop off. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you here, there, or in the air. But until that time, wait a minute. We can't be finished yet because we wanted to talk about this. Woo! All right, here's what's going on, because Israel's there with the Golan Heights. And they have different phases. Phase 1, where they've already been doing it right now, into Quneitra in phase 1, like today, earlier with that not the border crossing, but the IDF checkpoint there in Quneitra, where the Syrian soldiers, where they went through and they were shouting Allahu Akbar. Anyway, they want to move towards phase 2 and the safe zone goal. Why? Because this includes the area of Sueda, and where all the Druze people live. And Israel has promised to protect them. And this is an area I'm watching, especially with everything going on right at the very tippy top there, just outside of the orange of Sueda area, and Dara, Damascus, where they're in Quneitra. Look how close Israel was with their checkpoint there in Quneitra today, at the top of the orange area. And they want to make that UN demilitarized buffer zone, and they keep expanding it. But something is going to happen, I believe, between Jolani's forces there in Damascus and the Druze people down there in Sueda, because there's some prophecies. See that right there? Aram, A-R-A-M. There's something to that with what's coming up with Isaiah 17 verse 3. But that's all I think I have for you guys tonight. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you here, there, and in the air. Until then, we'll talk soon. Maranatha. Jesus Christ is coming so very soon. Check out this little ending I put at the end. Let me know what you think.